Hello, namaskar, vanakkam. I hope all of you are doing absolutely great. What I bring to you today is an extremely inspiring story from the ICSE Class 10 Treasure Chest textbook for English literature. It's an extremely inspiring story, as I said, because one can relate to it. And the fact that despite all the surround sound, and that's one of my favorite phrases, despite all the surround sound, if you focus on what you want to do and what you need to do, you can achieve wonders. That's really the moral of this particular story. It's set in Africa, but the kind of lessons that it has makes it a very universal kind of a story. So I'm sure each one of you can also relate to this particular story about this young girl. Okay, so let's get started. Before we get into the text of the story, I want to give you a basic context so that it becomes easy for you to understand the cultural context in which the story is placed. That's very important in literature कि जिस तरह की संस्कृति, जिस तरह के कल्चरल बैकग्राउंड में किसी भी स्टोरी को सेट किया गया है, अगर आप उसको समझ लें, if you are able to understand that, that makes it much more easier for you to understand the nuances in this particular story. Okay, one of the things, and let me just point this out, one of the things that a couple of students wrote to me is that when we do, when we have the lessons or if we are asked to do public speaking in school, what are the things that we need to keep in mind? I would say at your level, you're all 15-year-old students. At your level, you need to take care of a couple of things. In fact, I've done a series of videos on public speaking, the kind of things you need to bear in mind when you are speaking on stage or talking to a group of people. Please do have a look at those videos. You will find them very useful. More importantly, I will just point out two things. One is the body language. Your body language should convey confidence, not arrogance. Confidence. That you are very comfortable with the way you are. Number two, to be able to make eye contact with the people and speak with modulation in your voice, in the sense how you throw your words becomes extremely important. Like the way I speak, and this is not something which I had when I was a youngster, mind you. This is something which you develop over a period of time, and since my profession involves speaking to camera, it is something which has evolved over a period of time. So you need to modulate your voice, your diction, the way you throw your voice, the way you emphasize on certain words. Now look at the way I said it, the way you emphasize on certain words so that you draw these persons, the audience's attention to what you want to convey, to tell them that this is the word, this is the phrase I want you to focus on and remember, right? So those are a couple of things that you need to bear in mind. This is for those students who are interested in public speaking. It's a great soft skill to have. It's a great soft skill to have. And I don't necessarily mean that you should have only in English. You could be an excellent public speaker in Hindi, in Tamil, in Telugu, in Bengali, in Bhojpuri, in Kashmiri, any language. But in whatever language you try to do it, try to be excellent at it. I always believe there is really no fun in being mediocre. There is no fun in being ordinary. If you are doing something, even if you are making samosas, ensure that you make the best samosas in the world. That should be the skill set that you need to prioritize getting very good at. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so this is about the author of The Girl Who Can. Ama Ata Aidoo is a writer and academician from Ghana in Africa, and she also served as the country's Minister for Education. So in that sense, pretty relevant to what we are doing. Her stories highlight women's issues and focus on issues of choice and conflict. Now, these are important words which I would strongly recommend you should use in your answers. That issues of choice and conflict, the two C's that are an integral part of anyone's life. You know, what are the choices we have, and whether we are conflicted while making those choices. Now, where is Ghana? For those of you who may not be very familiar with the African map, in Africa, it is surrounded. It's actually if you see the map, now my drawing is not very good, so pardon me for that. Like Africa is something like this, right? So Ghana comes somewhere here. Okay, so it's surrounded. So one side is the sea, but it is surrounded by three different countries on the three sides. It's surrounded by Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Togo on the three side, and the Atlantic Ocean on the fourth. So that's how the geography of Ghana is. Now, I just got this photograph. Just to give you an idea, now this is the kind of girl that we are talking about, of this age, and what she ends up doing despite the kind of family background that she grows up in, family circumstances. Now, what's the story about? It's about Ajoa, a young African girl who is able to rise above social criticism, the criticism about how her legs are, okay, especially from her grandmother, and the pressure it mounts on her psyche. She lives in a village in Ghana with her mother and grandmother. She has thin legs. Now, this is at the heart of the story. And she's constantly told that they are not good for supporting hips meant for childbearing. So even as she's a young girl, the pressure on her to get married, bear children, and whether her legs are good enough to have the kind of physique which can facilitate childbearing is something which is considered very important. So you understand the social context. That's what I said at the beginning. The social and cultural context of a place is very important to understand the different intricacies of the story which you are reading. She emerges victorious at the end of the story, and it proves that women have a greater role in society than merely giving birth to children. I'm sure all of you, boys and girls, would agree with that. Now, the themes of the story. Now, before I get into the things, so that you have an idea what we are going to talk about, because more than just the story is pretty simple, but what are the themes the author is trying to convey is much more important. One, of course, is about the empowerment of the girl child, empowerment of women. So it's about the journey of a girl who discovers her own strengths and abilities. So the theme of empowerment of individuals, particularly of the young girl child, to overcome challenges and to achieve their goals is one of the major themes of this particular story. Now, Ajoa's desire to run and compete with others, it represents a push. What she's doing is that this is my way to send a lesson to kind of, this is going to be my answer against all the people who criticize me for my physical frailties, physical possible inabilities, etc. Okay, so that's what she's doing. Her victory in the race shows that her talents and abilities should not be restricted by tradition at any cost. The second one is extremely important, that of identity. The theme of identity, because it also involves a search, because she realizes that she can carve and find her identity as a runner, as an athlete. So the legs that she's criticized for actually become the vehicle for her to carve out her own identity. How fascinating, isn't it? So she discovers her abilities and the impact it has on herself. So this helps her get her sense of understanding of her own place in the world. The other thing, while doing public speaking, a very good strategy always is, if you're going to do it as part of your, Viva or, general competitions at school, is to indulge in rhetoric. When you are speaking, to draw the audience into what you are speaking and make them engrossed even more, make them more interested in what you're speaking. You should add this thing, I really think that this is the way it should be. Don't you think so? So the moment you ask a question, it kind of, even if someone is dozing away, you'll say, he asked me a question. She asked me a question. So I am expected to be part of the answering process. So it keeps them more engaged. So that's another strategy which you could employ while you are doing public speaking. Okay. See, मेरी क्लास में ना आपको सिर्फ एक लेसन का मतलब नहीं समझाया जाएगा. I will not tell you only the meaning. I'll tell you lots of other things, because as I always say, I am not taking pride. Oh, I have been teaching for 20 years. I have been teaching for 25 years. I have been teaching for 30 years. I have been experienced. I don't believe in all that. Life should be that of a student. I believe in being a student all my life, which is why I keep moving on, in the sense that unless you have different experiences in life, and this story is a great example of that, unless you have different kinds of experiences in life, you will get stagnated. You will be in that comfort zone. Oh, I know how to teach World War II, so I can teach it at any time to. And how boring it would be to keep teaching World War II for 30 years. I mean, to teach trigonometry for 30 years? No. Unless you yourself evolve and learn new things, you will just be a frog in the well. You will just get stagnated. So in life, never get stagnated. Rolling stones gather no moss. I hope you have heard that idiom. It means that if you are a stone which is always at one place, over a period of time, uske upar moss jam jati hai. But if you keep on rolling, you will ensure that you will never gather moss. You should all be rolling stones. That's what I try to be. I try to be a sponge at my age, to keep learning new things. And in fact, I'm very excited that once I finish recording all these videos, I'm going to embark on doing something new. I don't want to get stagnated with just, I don't look at myself as a tuition teacher. I'm not even a teacher in that sense. But I believe in doing different things. I'm a writer. I do different kinds of writing. I do a lot of TV stuff. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I write satire. I do motivation lectures. So you do different kinds of things so that you keep learning new things. Always be a sponge. And at least at your age, you always need to be a sponge, because what you learn now is what will really help you later in life. Okay, I'm digressing because I just feel excited, because what I know, I need to pass it on to others. That's something which I strongly believe in. And it goes beyond the textbook. I am not too much caught into this textbook mein hai, syllabus mein hai, marks. Marks are just milestones. They don't really matter beyond a point. Gender roles and expectations. The story challenges traditional views of femininity, how a woman is expected to be, particularly in African cultures, because that's the context in which this particular story is placed. Adjoa's grandmother, Nana, believes a woman's worth is tied to her ability to bear children, healthy children, and Adjoa's love for running and her thin legs become symbols of defying those expectations, that I will use my legs in a way I think they should be used, which is to be a formidable athlete, right? Not just for bearing children. So that's a defiance of sort. She's defying societal norms which are represented by her grandmother. And of course, there is a generational gap. Her grandmother comes from a different generation, a different way of thinking. That's why she talks like that. The power of self-belief. This is another theme, that despite Nana's negativity, Adjoa holds on to her passion for running, winning the race, which she does in the second half of the story. It reinforces her self-belief and demonstrates that if you set your heart on something, you can achieve your goals. Then, of course, there's the generational conflict that I just mentioned. The story portrays a very subtle tension. It's not very loud because she doesn't answer back. In fact, she's very amused at the manner in which the grandmother is always criticizing or laughing at her, mocking her. Between Nana's traditional views and Mami, who is Adjoa's mother, very beautiful character of the mother, more progressive outlook. I really love the mother's character the most. You know, it's like Kal, Aaj or Kal. So the one who is in the center. This generational difference reflects a broader societal shift. The story also explores the complex dynamics within a three-generational household. While Nana criticizes Adjoa, Mami supports her daughter's dreams. She wants her to pursue her dreams. In the end, Nana even shows a grudging acceptance of Adjoa's abilities, right? So it ends in a very beautiful way. So that's as far as this particular story is concerned. And then finally, there is also the importance of education. The importance of education. This is another photograph, which of course, I have also used in the thumbnail of the story. So now let's get to the text of this particular story. Okay, this is taken from the textbook itself, which is why it is looking like this. But in any case, you would have your textbook with you. I couldn't find a PDF of this particular story anywhere. They say that I was born in Hazotzi. It is a very big village in the central region of our country, Ghana. Now, Hazotzi is interesting because it is a land known for its good soil, a very fertile land known for its quality of soil, this particular place. So please remember the spelling and the name of this particular place. They also say that when all of Africa is not choking under a drought, Hazotsi lies in a very fertile lowland in a district known for its good soil. Maybe that's why anytime I don't finish eating my food, Nana says, "You, Ajua, you don't know what life is about. You don't know what problems there are in this life." So, what it shows is that Nana, her grandmother, is a very practical minded woman. She teaches her the value of food. So that's again something very important. So she tells her that you don't know the kind of problems there are. There are people who go without food. So you should consider yourself lucky, and under no circumstances you should waste food. So this is an important aspect of Nana. So please make a note of it. The fact that she values food, she's practical minded, and she kind of imbibes good values. She's not a negative character, but she imbibes the right values. She kind of encourages the good values in her granddaughter. As far as I could see, there was only one problem. When she says problems, she says, I think there was only one problem. This is from her perspective of being only 7 years old. And it had nothing to do with what I knew Nana considered as problems, or what mommy, that's her mother, thinks of as the problem. Mommy is my mother. Nana is my mother's mother. So 3 generations. And they say I'm 7 years old. I mean, obviously she wouldn't know. She has been told she's 7 years old. And my problem is that at this 7 years of age, there are things I can think in my head, but which maybe I do not have the proper language to speak them out with. That is, I am able to think, but I don't have the communication ability to articulate what I am thinking in my head. So she doesn't have the language skills to articulate her problems. And that, I think, is a very serious problem. So she thinks at the age of 7, that's a very serious problem, that I am not able to articulate, express what are the problems that I am thinking about. Because it is always difficult to decide whether to keep quiet and not say any of the things that come into my head, or say them and get laughed at. So her dilemma is that whether I should say any of the things that come into my head, because if you say it, you might get laughed at, mocked. Not that it is easy to get any grown-up to listen to you, even when you decide to take the risk and say something serious to them, because they may not care for your opinion. They may not really care for what you think, for your views. So they will end up mocking her by laughing at her. Take Nana, for example. First, I have to struggle to catch her attention. So she's not someone who will give her much attention, because after all, she's only 7 years old. Why should I take a 7-year-old seriously? Then I tell her something I've taken a long time to figure out. So you realize that Ajoy is someone who, thinks a lot. She kind of puts her heart and mind into something, thinks it through, and then she wonders whether she should express her opinion. And then what always happens. She would once stop whatever she is doing, whatever work Nana is doing, and mouth open, stare at me for a very long time, as though with a sense of bewilderment, with a sense of astonishment. Then bending and turning her head slightly, so that one ear comes down towards me, she will say in that voice, Ajwa, you say what? After I have repeated, and then if Ajwa repeats whatever she said, she would make it seem as though she did not understand what was conveyed to her by her granddaughter. She would either, still in that voice, ask, never, never, but never to repeat that. That is, you will never say this particular thing any time again. Or she would immediately burst out laughing. Okay. She would laugh and laugh and laugh. So, the word has been repeated in order to emphasize that, until tears run down her cheeks, and she would stop whatever she's doing and wipe away the tears with the hanging edges of her cloth. That she would be so amused at what her granddaughter would have to say. And she would continue laughing until she is completely tired. But then, as soon as another person comes by, another passerby, just to make sure she doesn't forget what it was, whatever it was I had said, she would repeat it to her. That is, she would tell it to a third person so that she doesn't forget what she had heard from Ajwa. And then, of course, there would be two old people laughing and screaming with tears running down their faces. They would both be extremely amused. Sometimes this show continues until there are three, four, or even more of such laughing and screaming, tear faced grown up. So they would all laugh at what Ajwa had to say. And all the performance on whatever I had said. I find something quite confusing in all this. Now, that would confuse Adjoa. Why on earth are they laughing at me like this? That is, no one ever explains to me. They don't tell me why they are laughing. What is it that I have said that they find so very amusing? That is, no one ever explains to me why sometimes I shouldn't repeat. That is, sometimes she would say, never ever say it again. Why? While other times, some other things I would say would not only be all right, but also be considered very funny. They would be repeated so many times to so many people for their enjoyment. You see how neither way of hearing me out can encourage me to express my thoughts too often. So she says that both reactions, either to tell me that never ever repeat that, okay, or to laugh at me so much, either of the two reactions are not going to encourage me to speak, to express myself, to articulate what's there on my mind, right? So in that sense, she finds both reactions to be extremely negative in terms of encouraging her to speak whatever she wants to say, to express her thoughts freely. I hope it's clear till here. Like all this business to do with my legs, I've always wanted to tell them not to worry. I mean, Nana and my mother. One of the things, I'm sorry, I'm going on and again about public speaking, but this is not really about public speaking. One of the problems that I find among many students is that they don't roll their tongue. It's very important to roll your tongue while you're speaking, especially when it comes to speaking English. Not so much when it comes to Indian languages, except Malayalam and Tamil to an extent. Because in Malayalam, you have words like the R, okay, it's Kori code, it's not cozy code, okay. So there is the thing of the R. So that is something which you need to be particular about, aware of. So it's very important to roll the tongue and to speak with clarity. I found some students, they almost mumble the words. They don't kind of throw their voice. You need to have the confidence to be able to like hearing the sound of your own voice. And that's something which comes with practice. Okay, so that's something which you do. So even if you speak slow, and I always advise people to speak slow, but speak with a lot of clarity. That is something very important. And let me tell you one more thing. Speaking English is not just a virtue. It's a skill set that in today's day and age you ought to have, because the world is a global village. If you are able to communicate in a language which most people in the world speak, it just puts you at an advantage. Okay, right. I'll come back to this thing. I'll keep giving this gyan. Please don't mind. I've always wanted to tell them not to worry. I mean, Nana and my mother. That it did not have to be an issue for my two favorite people. Now, this is important. So despite the way Nana reacts, both of them, her mother and her grandmother, are her two favorite people to fight over. But I did not want it either to be told not to repeat that, or it to be considered so funny that anyone would laugh at me until they cried. She did not approve of that kind of reaction. After all, they were my legs. So there is a sense of possessiveness. Meri tange hain, my legs. Why should they make fun of that? When I think back on it now, those two, Nana and my mother, must have been discussing my legs from the day I was born. That's what she thinks. What I'm sure of is that when I came out of the land of sweet, soft silence into the world of noise and comprehension, the first topic I met was my legs. Now look at how she's describing. What is this land of sweet, soft silence? Her mother's womb, where she was for the past 9 months. So that's how the womb is described, as the land of sweet, soft silence. There was no noise that she heard. But the moment she was born, it was into the world of noise and comprehension. Means she could start understanding. And she thought that the first topic they must have discussed would have been my legs, because they seemed to be obsessed with my legs. That discussion was repeated very regularly. Nana, you know Kaya, that is the mother's name. I thank my God that your first child is female, but Kaya, I'm not sure about her legs. So, she's not regretting the fact that it's a female child. So, a female child in Ghana is celebrated. It's not someone who is looked down upon, Are, we needed a male child. No. She's celebrated and she's happy about the fact that she was a female child. But she's worried about her thin legs. And Nana would shake her head in disapproval. The shaking of the head would convey unhappiness or disapproval of her legs. Mommy, mother, why are you always complaining about Ajwa's legs? If you ask me, okay. If you ask me, but she's not allowed to complete the sentence. Nana, they are too thin. So she's more emphatic. So you see, in terms of the personality, the grandmother seems to be much more of an assertive kind of person than the mother. And I'm not asking you. No, I'm not asking you for your opinion. I'm telling you what it is. Nana has many voices. There's a special one she uses to shut everyone up. So this is the tone she uses to say, shut up. I'm not asking you. Did I ask you for your opinion? No. So just shut up. Some people have no legs at all. My mother would try again with her small courage. So you realize what I told you, that in terms of personality, the grandmother is the more assertive kind of a woman. So the mother's courage is described as small courage. So this all from the perspective of the 7-year-old. Mind you, this all her observation. She thinks her mother has small courage. She thinks her grandmother uses this to shut up people. So it's all her perception. Please keep that in mind. Please make a note of it. Put an asterisk marks in your notes. But Ajwa has legs. Nana would insist, except that they are too thin and also too long for a woman. So thin and long. Kaya, listen, once in a while, but only once in a very long while, somebody decides, that is nature, a child's spirit mother, an accident happens and somebody gets born without arms or legs or both sets of limbs. So she says what she has said, some people get born without legs. So she says that is a really rare occurrence, that it happens once in a blue moon, that, it may be an accident and, somebody may get born without arms or legs or both sets of limbs. And then let me touch wood. It's a sad business. It's very sad for a child to be like that. And such things are not for talking about every day. But if any female child decides to come into this world with legs, then they might as well be legs. They should be strong legs, right? Not thin legs like this. What kind of legs? And always at that point, I knew from her voice that my mother was weeping inside. No mother likes her child to be criticized, right? And that also about a physical aspect, any aspect for that matter. But no mother likes it. No parent likes it. Nana would never heard such inside weeping. So you realize the grandmother was not very sensitive and considerate about her own daughter's emotions and feelings, and persisted with her criticism of her granddaughter's thin and long legs. Understood? So this is another aspect that you need to bear in mind, that she was not very sensitive and considerate about her daughter's feelings, that is Mami's feelings, Kaya's feelings. Not that it would have stopped Nana even if she had heard it, which always surprised me, because about almost everything else apart from my legs, Nana is such a good grown-up. But when it comes to my legs, what happens to her? That's what Ajwa wonders. In any case, what do I know about good grown-ups and bad grown-ups? I mean, after all, I'm only 7 years old. What would I really know about? How could Nana be a good grown-up when she carried on so much about my legs? So she's thinking, is she a good grown-up or a bad grown-up? How can she be a good grown-up if she continues to criticize my legs? In the Tamil movie Nayakan, released in the year 1987 or 88, Kamal Hassan, he got a national award for that. He plays a Don. I mean, Students from Tamil Nadu will be familiar with it. It was remade in Hindi as Dayavan. Uh, in Nayagan, there is a dialogue of a child, of his grandson, asking him, "Ingal nallavana kattavana? Are you a good man or a bad man?" And he's a don, and he says, "I don't know." It's one of Kamal Hassan's famous dialogues. It reminded me of that. So but despite this, I really like Nana, except for that one. Except for the fact that she continues to harp on my thin legs, I really like her. As I keep saying, if any woman decides to come into this world with all of her two legs, then she should select legs that have meat on them with good calves. Because you are sure such legs would support solid hips, and a woman must have solid hips to be able to have children. So that's the reason why she thinks Adjoa ought to have. So even while she's only 7 years old, she's more obsessed about her ability and the physique to be able to bear children. So that's a rather distorted view of looking at your own granddaughter, who is a small child, just 7 years old. So, but Adjoa's maturity is that despite that, she's very fond of her grandmother. And this is the only aspect that she did not like about Nana. "Oh, mother," that's how my mother would answer, very, very quietly. And the discussion would end, or they would move on to something else. So that's how it would get over. Sometimes Nana would pull in something about my father, who she did not obviously approve of. How, looking at such a man, we have to be humble and admit that after all, God's children are many. Now, she was disapproving about Kaya's husband. How, after one's only daughter had insisted on marrying a man like that, you still have to thank your God that the biggest problem you got later was having a daughter with spindly legs that are too long for a woman and too thin to be of any use. So she thinks that, this, after having married a man like that, after that, the only negative you got was to have a granddaughter with legs like that. Spindly means weak and frail. Okay, that's what spindly means. So she thinks that, worse things could have happened, but let's be glad that that's the only negative thing that really happened. The way she always added that bit about my father under her breath, as though she's muttering in disapproval, she probably thought I didn't hear it, but I always heard it. Plus, that's what always shut my mother up for good. So if you brought up the father's topic in conversation, the mother would shut up. She would not kind of continue with the conversation. So that even if I had not actually heard the words, once my mother looked like even her little courage was finished, I could always guess what Nana had added to the argument. So that was like a Brahmastra. Keep father ka comment dal do, husband ka comment dal do, she would shut up. Okay, because obviously she did not approve of her daughter's choice. Legs that have meat on them with good calves to support solid hips to be able to have children. So I wish that one day I would see for myself the legs of any woman who had children. So now she's getting curious. Let me look at the legs of women who have children. How are they different from mine? Obviously, it's no comparison because a 7-year-old will obviously not have well-developed legs, any part of the body for that matter. But in our village, that's not easy. The older women wear long wraparounds all the time. Perhaps if they let me go bathe in the river in the evening, I could have checked. So look at the child's curiosity. It's almost a little amusing and funny. But I never had the chance. It took a lot of begging just to let my mother and Nana to let me go splash around in the shallow end of the river with my friends so that she could have a look at the women who were little girls like me. For proper baths, we used a small bathhouse behind our hut. Therefore, the only naked female legs I have ever really seen are those of other little girls like me or older girls in the school. And those of my mother and Nana, 2 pairs of legs, which must surely belong to the approved kind, that is, legs which could have solid hips, which could bear children, because Nana gave birth to my mother and my mother gave birth to me. In my eyes, all my friends have got legs that look like legs, but whether the legs have got meat on them to support the kind of hips, that I don't know. So she's not very sure about it. So, it kind of reflects the curiosity of Adjoa. Okay, she's kind of wondering because She's not able to get the answers to the kind of questions that she has in her mind. According to the older boys and girls, the distance between our little village and the small town is about 5 kilometers. I don't know what 5 kilometers means. So a 7-year-old is not able to comprehend that. They always complain about how long it is to walk to school and back. But to me, we live in our village and walking those kilometers did not matter. School is nice. So she kind of liked the fact that she could go to school. Now, this is an important little detail the writer has put, that she had no problems. Her legs did not get tired. So, which means that despite the thin nature of those legs, they were actually quite sturdy in their own way. Sturdy means to strong. Sturdy. School is another thing Nana and my mother discussed often and appeared to have different ideas about. Nana thought it would be a waste of time. I never understood what she meant. Why would she call it a waste of time? My mother seemed to know and disagreed. So the mother was insistent that Adjoa had to go to school. She kept telling Nana that she, that is my mother, felt that she was locked into some kind of darkness because she did not go to school. So Kaya had not gone to school. Okay. And she felt that she was locked into some kind of darkness, that she did not get enlightened because she was never sent to school. So that if I, her daughter, could learn to write and read my own name and a little besides, perhaps be able to calculate some things on paper, that would be good. I could always marry later and maybe. Nana would just laugh. Maybe with things legs like her, she might as well go to school. That, if she has, as though, legs ऐसे हैं तो उसका कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता. That's the kind of attitude that Nana had vis-a-vis her thin and long legs. So she said that she might as well go to school. Okay, I mean, इसका कुछ हो नहीं सकता. There's nothing that we can do about her. So she might as well go to school. Okay. Basically dismissing her as a hopeless kind of a person. Running with our classmates on a small sports field and winning first place each time never seemed to me to be anything about which to tell anyone at home. So this was something which is normal. That is, she used to run and always come first in the race. Okay, at Joa. But she never disclosed that to anyone at home because she did not think it was so important. This time it was different. I don't know how the teachers decided to let me run for the junior section of our school in the district games, but they did. So the teachers spotted the talent of Adjoa and decided that she would run in the junior section of the district games. When I went home to tell my mother and Nana, they had not believed it at first. They did not believe that legs like this and she would run. So Nana had taken it upon herself to go and ask into it properly, inquire, at the school. She came home to tell my mother that it was really true. I was one of my school's runners. Is that so? Exclaimed my mother. Look at the joy. Exclaim word. She would be feeling so happy. Always remember that the only people in the world who would always feel very happy with your success would be your parents. In some circumstances, the person who has taught you. Otherwise, no one else really. Sometimes there is even sibling rivalry. But parents will always feel extremely delighted in the success and revel in the success of the child. And that's what Kaya feels here. Is that so? I know her. Her mouth moved as though she was going to tell Nana that after all, there was a secret about me she could not be expected to share with anyone. Okay. So, how did she... Okay, sorry. But then Nana herself looked so pleased. Out of surprise, my mother shut her mouth up. In any case, since the first time they heard the news, I have often caught Nana staring at my legs with a strange look on her face. So Kaya feels that, she has some talent. And this whole obsession with her thin legs is kind of misplaced. But she decides, I'm not going to tell anything to Nana. Because again, it will kickstart the same kind of discussion, unpleasant discussion. I've often caught Nana staring at my legs with a strange look on her face ever since she has heard the news, but still pretending like she was not looking. All this week, she has been washing my school uniform herself. That's a big surprise. And she did not stop at that. She even went to Mr. Mensa's house and borrowed his charcoal pressing iron each time, came back with it and ironed the uniform until if I had in the uniform, I would have said aloud that I had had enough. So it's almost like a bit of childish humor that is being indulged in. So her grandmother is kind of feeling happy. She's a little surprised also, but she's also feeling proud, but she does not express it. Her way of expressing it through these kind of acts of washing the school uniform and also taking the effort of borrowing the iron box and uh, uh, ironing it. So it shows that she was proud of her granddaughter's achievement, and this is how she showed it. This can be a potential question. So please use the keywords from the thing, which is basically to washing, ironing, right? And the fact that she describes it as a big surprise. Okay. Wearing my school uniform this week has been very nice. At the parade the first afternoon, it caught the rays of the sun and shone brighter than everybody else's uniform. So Nana had washed and ironed it well. I'm sure Nana saw that too and must have liked it. Yes, she has been coming into town with us every afternoon of this district sports week. Each afternoon, she has pulled one set of fresh old clothes from the big brass bowl to wear. And those old clothes are always so stiffly starched, you can hear the cloth creak when she passes by. So this is all very subtle kind of humor that her clothes have so much of starch, so it's almost like creaks sound when she walks by. But she walks way behind her school children as though she was on her own way to someplace else. So she wants to see with her own eyes. She wants to be a witness to what her granddaughter is up to. So there is a sense of pride. There is a sense of curiosity. Please mark these two words, pride and curiosity in Nana vis-a-vis her granddaughters running athletic skills. Yes, I have won every race I ran in for my school, and I have won the cup for the best all-round junior athlete. So this is important. Okay, please note this down. Yes, Nana said so she didn't care if such things are not done. She would do it. You know what she did? She carried the gleaming cup on her back. Okay. This is like, to be there for her. And she carried the gleaming cup on her back like they do with babies and other very precious things. And this time not taking the trouble to walk by herself. So she walked along with her granddaughter to show that, hey, Meri Poti here, my granddaughter, and she has won this. So there is a sense of great pride. When we arrived in our village, she entered her compound to show the cup to my mother before going to give it back to the headmaster. Oh, grown-ups are so strange. Nana is right now carrying me on her knee and crying softly, muttering. That sa thin legs can also be useful. I mean, this must be the Ghana's word for thin legs, the legs. Thin legs can also be useful, that even though some legs do not have much meat on them to carry hips, they can run. Thin legs can run, then who knows? So there can be other uses of those thin legs. I don't know too much about such things, but that's how I was feeling and thinking all along, that surely one should be able to do other things with legs as well as have them, because they can support hips that can make babies. So it can be of different uses. That's not the sole purpose of the legs, except that I was afraid of saying that sort of thing aloud. But she's a little timid about saying it loud because she could be asked to never say it again, or she could be laughed at. Because someone would have told me never to repeat such words, or else they would have laughed so much at what I said, they would have cried. It's much better this way, to have acted it out to show them. This is a very important line, and this can come in the examination as a reference to context question. To have acted it out. So she, by running and winning the gleaming trophy, she proved that these thin and long legs can be put to other uses. So she has shown, it's like they say, Sachin Tendulkar does not react to criticism. He lets his bat do the talking, they say, right? So it's similar. So she made her legs show it to the grandmother that there can be other uses. As for my mother, she has been speechless as usual. That is, she's overjoyed, but she decides to keep quiet. So this particular story highlights the cultural and societal values in Ghana. The conversations put the spotlight on relationships, the value of food, the cultural ethos. So all those points you need to bear in mind. Then Adjo's success in the district games shows that women can excel in areas which are otherwise dominated by women, and she can defy societal norms. The legs are an important metaphor. Okay, 1 minute. Let me just. One minute. Okay, so the legs are an important metaphor in this particular story because they're always put down as inferior in the case of Adjoa. But when they are given a chance, they can prove that they can excel and be the best in that particular arena. The story also highlights what the keen observation skills of Adjoa. She's, as I said, the whole story is told from her perspective. So little things she's able to observe. So that's another important point. The value of education, the views on education, that's another important point. I will come to the title after this. Mommy never attended school, so she values education and she wants her daughter to go to school. Nana thinks school is a waste of time, but since she has thin legs, which would prove to be a detriment, she thinks that, okay, school jane do kind of a thing. So Adjoa's triumph is a lesson to her grandmother that thin legs can also be useful, and bearing children is not the only role that women have to play in society. The significance of the title, what do you think of the title? Now, at the very literal level, it refers to Adjoa's physical ability to run fast. Isn't that so? She's the girl who can outrun all her other competitors, who can conveys the defiance, who can, can you do it? Yes, we can. That kind of a thing. The Obama ka slogan tha. It conveys the defiance of expectations. It signifies Adjoa's potential to defy the limitations placed on her by traditional gender roles. She can be that. So the word "can" is extremely powerful. Okay, she can be much more than just being a wife to someone and eventually a mother to someone. It is about hope and potential. The girl who can. Okay, so the title is very forceful in that way. It's very emphatic. It carries hope. It carries the sense of possibility. And it suggests that young girls like Adjoa have the potential to break free from societal constraints and achieve their dreams. All these kind of words and phrases you should use in your answers, which is why I have written them out here. Universality of the title. It's not just, it could be, as I said, the story itself is about a very universal theme. We in India can also relate to it. It could be about any village in India. Isn't that true? So it can represent any girl or any young woman who dares to challenge the status quo. You should read the story about Purna Malawat, who's a young girl from Nizamabad district of Telangana who climbed Mount Everest. Inspiring girl. I've met her several times. We have done a documentary on her. There is a movie called Purna which came. The movie was not very greatly made by Rahul Bose, but she's a very inspiring story. In fact, she has written her book. I have got a book called Purna which has been written on her. So Purna is the person who came to her mind, who climbed Mount Everest coming from a small village in Nizamabad district of Telangana. So the title in that sense has a very universal appeal that resonates with readers beyond, it's not just about Ghana. As I said, it could be about India. It could be about any other Asian or African country. So that is what this particular story is all about. I hope you have understood this entire story, are able to relate to it. You found it inspiring and inspired enough to be able to do things on your own. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you. And I'll see you with the next explanation video pretty soon. Tata.